The White House is going on offense. On Friday, in an unprecedented letter to Republican House Speaker Mike Johnson, White House counsel Ed Siskel declared that the impeachment investigation into President Biden is, quote, over, and urged the speaker to, quote, move on. He called out Republicans' failure to produce any evidence that links Biden to any crime, even after they've reportedly collected more than 100,000 pages of records, interviewed dozens of witnesses, and held public hearings. And don't forget, their central witness, the so-called highly credible informant Vladimir Smirnov, well, he was arrested for lying to the FBI. Speaker Johnson's spokesman responded to the White House counsel's letter on X, stating, quote, "The White House does not get to decide how impeachment gets resolved. That is for Congress to decide." But just this week, the House Speaker admitted that he's not paying much attention to the investigation or the so-called evidence.
To be very frank with you, very honest and transparent, because I've been so busy with all my other responsibilities, I have not been able to take the time to do the deep dive in the evidence. What has been uncovered is alarming. There's a lot of things that we believe have violated the law. Does it reach the high crimes, treason, high crimes misdemeanor standard? Everyone will have to make that evaluation when we pull all the evidence together and when we evaluate that.
Joining me now is California Congressman Robert Garcia, member of the House Oversight Committee and the House Homeland Security Committee. Congressman Garcia, as always, thank you for coming to the Saturday show. I see you shaking your head. So articulate your reaction to the speaker's comments there.
I mean, look, it is time for this impeachment sham to be over. I mean, Mike Johnson can barely keep a majority, Republicans retiring right and left. We've known from day one that this entire impeachment stunt has been about damaging President Biden and helping Donald Trump get reelected. And like you noted, the long list of witnesses that have been brought forward have ended up being Chinese spies, disgraced former mafia bosses, business people that are in jail, Rudy Giuliani conspiracy theorists. And so this whole thing has been a complete joke. It is time to move forward. I'm really glad that the White House sent that letter because we have essentially wasted months and months and months of time. We could actually be doing work for the American people on essentially this Donald Trump expedition. And I want to remind people as well, this entire impeachment stunt started with Marjorie Taylor Greene. She actually filed those initial impeachment papers against President Biden. So this is all the far-right extreme MAGAs trying to get their point across, trying to damage the president. But this is over, and it's time to move on.
Yeah, if I remember correctly, Congresswoman Greene filed those impeachment articles, like day 2 of the Biden presidency?
Right when yep.
Right. So Congressman, New York Times and Politico reported that House Republicans are looking for some type of backup plan, including issuing criminal referrals against Biden and his inner circle. How can they issue criminal referrals without any evidence at all that the president committed a crime?
Well, first, let's not forget that the modern Republican Party doesn't really care about evidence anymore, or facts, or truth. They are completely warped in their worldview of doing whatever it takes to support, their orange king, Donald Trump. I mean, that is what they are obsessed about. So the facts don't matter. And we've been arguing, and myself included, if we're going to talk about real corruption and real crime, then Republicans need to look in the mirror and start investigating Jared Kushner, who we know got a $2 billion payout from the Saudi government, and that we just learned a few days ago is starting to actually put together much larger land acquisition deals with other foreign governments. This is someone that had complete access, that worked in the White House. So this whole impeachment effort is a projection. The corruption lies deeply within what happened in the Trump White House. The president is trying to do his job. This impeachment sham is over. I think Mike Johnson needs to do the right thing and just move on. We have a lot of work to do.
And you've been one of the members of Congress who keeps trying to shine the spotlight on Jared Kushner when it comes to alleged corruption. So, Congressman, let's switch gears and talk about TikTok, because on Wednesday, the House passed with an overwhelming bipartisan majority, passed a bill that would force TikTok's Chinese owner ByteDance to either sell TikTok or face a ban in the United States. The driving reason is that the social media platform poses a national security risk. You voted against the bill. Does that mean those national security concerns are overblown? Why did you vote no?
Yeah, I mean, I joined, 50 other Democrats, and also I joined the highest-ranking Democrat on the Intelligence Committee, who made very clear that there was not yet any sort of national security concern over our data and the Chinese government, who of course are adversaries and who of course we're competitive with. But let's be real honest about what is happening. We have an app that 170 million Americans use. 1/3 of all Americans are on TikTok. It is a huge way that people communicate. And yes, there are real data privacy concerns. And yes, there are concerns about our data. But that's the case on every platform, whether it's Meta and Facebook, whether it's X. We saw what happened on Facebook in the last election cycle. And so this idea that we're going to target this one social media platform without yet any direct evidence that our data is being manipulated by the Chinese government, I think was the absolute wrong approach. I voted no. I voted a strong no. I think it's really important at this moment that we focus on data broadly, but to single out an app, is particularly where the main space where young people are communicating every day, I think is a huge, not just policy mistake, it's also a huge political mistake. And so I'm urging the Senate to slow this down. This was the fastest moving bill that I have seen in my 1 year in Congress. And from what I hear from more veteran members, they don't remember a bill moving so fast through the floor. And so I am very concerned. We all share the data concerns, but there's a better approach than what we just did.
Yeah, as I'm a non-member of Congress, and I can tell you, I've not seen a bill move that fast through Congress in my 17 years of following Congress here in Washington. But you mentioned the political problem here. You know, President Biden said he would sign the bill if it passes the Senate. So would that be a political mistake, especially in the eyes of young voters?
I think it's a political mistake to go forward with this process without any sort of guarantee that this would not lead to a disruption of service or a ban. There is no guarantee in the bill that we won't end up at a ban of TikTok, or certainly not a disruption for a period of time. Now, imagine a service that is being used by 170 million Americans and the main source of communication for young people across this country. And all of a sudden that is interrupted. We know who young people are going to assign blame to in that instance. So we've got to be very careful. The Senate's got to take its time, and we've got to ensure that people understand that for so many people, TikTok is the way they communicate. It's where young people gather. 7 million Americans use TikTok as their main source of income for their small business. Millions of other businesses and small business owners rely on TikTok to actually get referrals. And so I just don't know that all my colleagues in Congress understand the power of this social media tool. Yes, we should be concerned. Yes, there's data privacy issues, but this bill was not the right approach.
Congressman Robert Garcia of California, as always, thank you for coming to the Saturday Show.